What are some things that you do every single day to cultivate and continue that momentum of energy and of positivity in your life?
All starts with the bookends for me, right? What's that last 30 minutes of the day look like? What's that first 30 minutes of the day like? So preparing for success at night, making sure you get a good night's sleep. I mean, that is such a key component to
Yeah.
living life with energy. And so many people are sleep deprived, right? They're wired to their cell phones, they're watching TV. So preparing for a great night's sleep, making sure I get that, having a digital sunset, and then stacking small wins when I wake up, right? I always like to say, pare it down to three things: full glass of water, a little bit of movement, a little bit of breathing or meditation. If you do that every single day, you're going to feel pretty darn good. And when you can control those bookends, it's amazing. You have some semblance of control in an
Yeah.
otherwise chaotic world. So bookending your days really creates that foundation for living with energy.
Welcome to the Spear and Clover podcast, the show where military mindset meets the spirit of the puppy. I'm your host, Jason Skisick, the entrepreneurial evangelist, and each week I bring you the stories of visionaries who see the world as it could be and can't help but take action. Don't forget that this conversation continues in our brand new free Facebook group, Dynasty Builders, where you'll have access to free courses, live trainings, and Q&As, as well as money-making tactics you can plug and play in your business right away. That group is located at facebook.com/groups/dynasty defined. And you can obviously click that link in the show notes below. So go ahead and check that out. You guys, Benvenuto Cellini, who was a guy from the Renaissance, once said, "The ideal man is a philosopher, artist, and warrior." It should come as no surprise to you that this idea resonates with me deeply. My favorite people are deep thinkers who have a spark of passion for what they do and can drop you in the dust if you cross the line with them or the people they love. By Cellini's definition, today's guest is an ideal man. I know, hubba hubba, right? In this conversation, I will seek to learn more about what he thinks deeply about, where his passions have led him, and his preferred method of leaving me in the dust if I ever cross the line. He is an author, speaker, coach, and all-around badass. Please welcome my friend, Jeff Wickersham. Jeff, how are you, brother?
Jason, thank you so much for having me. Grateful to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. As I mentioned, immediately you said like 2 syllables, and I was like, I love your energy as soon as we got on the call. We had spoken once before, but man, when it hits you, it's like a wave. And hopefully we can share that with our audience today. So why don't you do me a favor? And I really spoke about you, but didn't say what you do. So if you could do me a favor in your own words, just let the listener know at home what it is that you do, how you spend your life.
Yep. Mental toughness, mindset, peak performance coach, really focusing on dads and how those dads can step up and lead not only themselves, but also their kids. And I'm a dad of 2 sons, 14 and 12. The greatest gift we can give to that next generation is equipping them with the strategies, the tactics, the tools that I don't know about you, Jason. I didn't have growing up, but I want to ensure that my kids, my boys have those, and I want to help other dads do the same. So all about that 6 inches in between our ears, that battle that you face, I face, we all face, getting better each day, actualizing our potential. And I love that line that you said, right? Philosophy, warrior, artist, all those in, love diving in and just love being authentic and providing that energy that you spoke about each and every day.
Yeah, it seems easy for you, and it's easy for me in my own version of that. And I think at our best, I think it's when you can tap into something that's authentic to you, and then learn practices to build on it, and then eventually maybe you become a professional, or maybe you just live a great life, like shoot for the stars, aim, land on the moon, right? And so maybe let's lead off with some value right away. What are some things that you do every single day to cultivate and kind of continue that momentum of energy and of positivity in your life?
All starts with the bookends for me, right? What's that last 30 minutes of the day look like? What's that first 30 minutes of the day like? So preparing for success at night, making sure you get a good night's sleep. I mean, that is such a key component to living life with energy. And so many people are sleep deprived, right? They're wired to their cell phones, they're watching TV. So preparing for a great night's sleep, making sure I get that, having a digital sunset, and then stacking small wins when I wake up, right? I always like to say, pare it down to 3 things: full glass of water, a little bit of movement, a little bit of breathing or meditation. If you do that every single day, you're going to feel pretty darn good. And when you can control those bookends, it's amazing. You have some semblance of control in an otherwise chaotic world. So love just dialing in those. I think the other day I hit, actually it was yesterday, 1,900 straight days of at least 10 minutes of meditation. So it's one of my standards. It's one of the things I do each and every day. I've told my wife, if I'm laid up in a hospital, you better put on those AirPods and let me do a little meditating. So, bookending your days really creates that foundation for living with energy.
Yeah, I just heard yesterday from an actor, I think, on a podcast, was like, I stack them and I streak them. I stack habits and I streak them. And I just hadn't heard it said in that way. It seems like you may have. But I want to dwell on one thing real quick, because somebody just heard what you just said, and they've heard it before 1,000 times. You did not say anything that I've never heard before.
Right.
They think you're lying. Sell me on it. Why do I need a good night's sleep? Because I used to work, one of my best friends owns a sleep company. And so I worked in sleep for professionally and worked with athletes in sleep. And the ones that really cared about it really benefited. But I think people hear that and they go, he's just saying that. Really, he's working 12 hours a day and he's getting 4 hours of sleep. So let's just dwell on this like recovery and mindfulness thing. How do I, if I don't currently value it, and I'm listening to this at home, I do, I get 8 or 9 hours of sleep, even when I'm busy. How do we get over the hurdle there?
Number one is having an awareness of the impact it can have on you physically and mentally, right? I mean, when we sleep, we flush out toxins in our body. We clear the mind of toxins. I mean, that's so, so vitally important. And then two, having some science behind it. And I forget what study it was that came out. Basically, under 7 hours of sleep, you're doubling your risk of cancer.
Wow.
My mom died of breast cancer.
Oh.
I intend to live to be 110 years old. I need to have everything in my tool set, my skill set, to be able to live a fruitful, long life. So, when I hear that under 7 hours, you double your risk of cancer. Obviously, I watched my mom take her last breath in front of me. It hits home, right? Like, I don't want that to happen. I want to live a great life. So sleep is so important. And I used to say, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Well, you know what? I'm going to be dead if I don't sleep. So, really prioritizing sleep. It's been a game changer for me from an energy perspective. And I always wasn't like this. I was a shy kid growing up. I think I got voted in my senior class biggest complainer. So like, where you start doesn't need to be where you end up. But that cancer under 7 hours, it's a huge, everybody's been touched by cancer. So it can be a huge kind of little twinge to say, you know what, I need to be looking at my sleep a little bit differently.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing that. I know I kind of called you out there, but because I know that personally, I know how valuable it has been in my life, and I know how bad I feel when I don't get enough sleep. And I just don't think that people hear that. I don't think they realize that it's literally a performance enhancing drug in every sense of the term, right? But then the next thing you said that kind of caught my interest there was you talked about being a big complainer. And I'm someone, again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm someone who's been so default positive in most of my life. How do you feel that has shifted in you? Because you don't seem like much of a complainer to me now. And so talk me through just like, what is the arc where you were able to build a bridge from maybe default negative or default picky or whatever you would describe it as yourself to now someone who clearly is a force of nature of positivity?
It all goes back to my mom getting sick. I mean, she had breast cancer on and off for 17 years. So I remember her having a double mastectomy, not being able to feed herself, and I had to feed her in the hospital. And at that point, it was that kind of subtle shift that I didn't know then, but definitely looking back, that was the spark to say, what are you complaining about? Here's your mother that has done everything right, and she's impacted by cancer. She couldn't even feed herself. Take the other route. And then I just kept on building it. And obviously I went down the personal development rabbit hole. And now there's so much power in the positivity. Now I need to lead for my family, right? Be the tip of the spear for my wife and my boys. If I'm, woe is me and things are terrible, what is that going to do for them? It's going to bring them down. And energy it can work in both ways, right? You can have a positive force that uplifts you. People want to be around those positive forces, where you can have, as John Gordon says in his book, The Energy Bus, you can be an energy vampire. And we've all encountered those where you have a conversation, you leave and you're exhausted. So it's been interesting to see the journey, and happiness, fulfillment, all those pieces go right in line with positivity. And you have a choice every single day. And I tell my boys the same thing. You can choose to be positive and happy, but that's your choice alone. And I think so many people punt that choice and let circumstances and external things impact their happiness and their positivity. And I'll tell you what, life is so much better when you lead it from a positive mindset.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting, folks like you, and I think I fall into this category too. There's so many businesses or jobs or ways that we can spend our life where we can do it. We can do it. We can make money doing it. We can do a good job at it. But there's this beautiful situation. It's almost like the recycle sign where you love doing a thing. The people that you serve love it, and maybe even you're able to help your family through doing it like you're describing. And so just this virtuous cycle that you're describing of your ecosystem of your professional life, where you become a better father for your family, you become a better father, and then can use that to leverage to help other fathers, and then that sets the example, and it just seems to feed on itself. And so maybe if you could, how did you end up finding that? How did you know that you wanted to do what you do professionally for a living?
I've been blessed with two amazing sons, right? Greatest
Yeah.
gift I've ever been given in the world. And my mom passing, I know how much she loved her grandchildren and would give anything for a day to be with them.
Mm.
So, and I know I went through dark times in my life and I went through struggles, and school doesn't prepare you for real life in my viewpoint, right? It just doesn't. And many times our parents don't know because it's been passed down generationally of,
Mm.
people in the depression, scarcity, all these different mindsets, right? So that was the trigger for me to be a better human being myself. And then once I started to uncover these things, I'm like, imagine if I could equip my sons with them. I've meditated with my boys now for the past 3 years. Every
Mm.
minute before school, I take them through a guided meditation where I say, in with positive, out with the negative, and we say these things. And I think to myself, they're going to have 30 years of a head start on me from a meditation. What better way to pay it forward and give them those tools and those gifts? So now I learn with the intention of being able to teach them and guide them. And I think there's no higher duty, higher calling for a parent than to make sure your kids, your children are set up for success and to blow you away in the future. So, just going down that rabbit hole myself, and then with that intent of teaching and leading my boys, it just, yes, it feeds on itself, right? And it's
I
like,
see
okay,
that.
what can I learn this year as a family? We all sat down January 1st. We wrote out our missions, our musts for the year. We all did it. My wife even did it this year. She didn't do it last year. She did it this year. And it was like such a connecting experience as a family. And you're in the gym business. I used to be in the gym business. I'm sure you heard somebody come in, I want to change something, but everybody else in my family likes to eat this junk. Well, imagine being a connected family on a mission. It's just so, so important. And it's honestly it's a lost edge that people aren't really thinking about. And I will tell you, when the whole family's on their toes and on the attack, it's a powerful, powerful force.
Yeah, I can think of maybe 4 or 5 families that I love and respect that I can think of. I could list them for you, but I won't. That have like posted core values and a family mission, and maybe they even went as far as to create a crest, which is like a fun little exercise.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, my daughter's only 2, so we haven't gotten to this point yet. She's not even 2 yet. And so, but I've had this conversation with my wife, and it's an interesting thing. And so I wonder if I'm sort of speaking for some of the listeners out there, where it's like when I walk into your Friendsgiving and I see that you've got the things posted. Shout out to Tommy, by the way, if he listens to this. I'm in awe of it. My wife is in awe of it. We're like, that's what we want. And then when I bring up the idea of actually sitting down and treating our family what appears to be like a business, it seems like I'm even blushing a little. I can feel it right now, where it's like it feels a little bit like, oh, that's weird. We don't want to be the weird family. And so maybe if you could like help me break that belief, not just for me, because I think it's going to happen for my family, but for the person listening at home, it's like, oh, it's so cool that he does this with his family. I'm not the person. How do we break that limiting belief?
My oldest son last night said, "Dad, you're quirky, right? Or you're weird." And I said, awesome, like weird and crazy
Yeah,
changes the world, right?
yeah.
And overwhelm, depression, isolation, stress, anxiety are all-time highs. if you're a parent, do you want your children going down that same path? That's the big question I'd like to ask to break that limiting belief. If you're 100% happy, hey, have at it. But I guarantee you 99.9% of people aren't, and they're lying to themselves. And if you want your children to go down that same path, repeat those same mistakes, repeat that same pain that you might have gone through or are going through right now, then you've got to shift. You've got to break that cycle. Great way to do it. I never wrote down goals, missions in the beginning of the year. I said, all right, let's do it as a family. They said, all right, share yours, Dad. I shared them. They shared theirs. They're up on their whiteboards. They're doing pull-ups, push-ups, practicing, getting good grades. It's amazing to watch them. And at times it gets me very choked up because I'm so freaking proud of them. And I know it's work for me. It's work for my wife. It's work for them. Yeah. But it's work that truly matters. At the end of the day, I got goosebumps just talking about it. And I remember it was January 2nd of this year. And my dad comes over. He's 76 years young. He still works out with me twice a week in the garage gym. And he said, where's the family? And I said, well, my youngest is at the Y practicing. My other's on a run. And my wife Heather's at spin class. And he's like, what the heck? I said, we're on the attack, Dad. We are a connected family on the attack. So watch out. So, that would be to break that limiting belief is, what do you want for your children? And most people don't ask themselves difficult questions, right? They don't define, hey, how can I set my children up for success, give them things that I might not have had, or go against the way the herd is headed, right? Because the herd is headed down a place that is not good. You don't want your kids headed down that place. So I always tell my sons, if you see the pack going that way or the herd, you better go the opposite.
Yeah, and I want to get to that, but I want to linger just for a moment on what you were just talking about, because so much of what you're talking about is preparatory. And I think as parents, we know that we need to give our children and our family the tools for things that aren't arrived yet, the things that are coming. And so the idea of setting a mission for the year to come, the idea of having goals that you're setting about what you're going to do when these problems inevitably arise. The training that we do isn't for the baseball game today. It's for what happens when we get a flat tire at 2 a.m. on a road trip, right?
Yep.
And even breathing before school. You're not angry now. I'm not either, but I might be soon. And what I can tell you is I've even seen this very early in my daughter's life. I'm talking within a month or two, looking at her in the eye while she's in the middle of it and just going, it doesn't fix it, but I can see it break the pattern. I can see it. I see her see me do it. And then she'll go like, bah, and she goes back to it. But we're getting there. And even so early, leveraging that is just, I can just see. So if you're somebody listening to this at home, it's not being quirky. It's not being weird. It's giving them tools when they don't need them. And if they practice them when they don't need them, they'll be there when they do. And I just think so that part of what you're doing is just super duper powerful. And I admire it and plan on continuing to try to implement stuff that here. But now you were talking a little bit about how the herd is shifting. And I think this is a really important part of this conversation, because the philosopher in you knows that, and the passion in you is sparking you to take action and go in a different direction. And so talk to me about what you think is different about our being a human being today than it would have been 100 years ago or many, many years before that.
One, we're inundated by more stimuli ever in the history of mankind, right? I think the science is, in 1 week, you have more stimuli, email, social media, all these things bombarding you than your entire lifetime of our ancestors, right? So we are over stimuli, and that has caused all these byproducts, right? Of anxiety, stress, overwhelm, always being plugged in. And I am standing up to lead to say that there is a different way. And you have to take breaks. You have to break from society's norms. You have to unplug from the matrix. And once you unplug, like you never go back in. And then you're like, wait a second, I can do these things that set me up for success. So, we're living in the greatest time ever because we have supercomputers in our hands. But so many people are librarians. They're not warriors. Back to your first thing that you said. And I like to make that distinction. We have the knowledge, right? They're librarians, but warriors take action. Warriors actually implement what is happening. And so many times people get into this almost personal development just rut where they're constantly consuming, but they don't ever take action. I wrote something in my newsletter the other week where I said, if you're reading a book and there is something that grabs you, a thought, an idea, an action that grabs you, put that book down. It's okay not to read it, and put it into action for the next 90 days. It might be the one thing that changes your life forever. And so many times we get wrapped up, well, I gotta finish the book. No, if that thing strikes you, implement it, take action, do it for the next 90 days, and it might change your life. So that a long-winded answer of kind of what's different, but we've got to take more action, and we've got to go against the norms that are out there, because so many people aren't happy, they're depressed, they're anxious, they're stressed. And I just don't want to live that way. And I want to make sure my sons don't live that way either.
Well, let me take a moment and react to what you just said, because it may be interesting to you that there's 3 books that I can see behind you, and 2 of them inspired me to take specific actions.
Okay.
Can't Hurt Me. The next day I rucked 15 miles. I had been in the military. I had rucked many times before, but I'm not a runner, and I've owned a CrossFit gym. So I didn't do anything long form really. Rowing maybe, but, and the day that I finished, I don't even know if I finished the book by the time I had already used the pack that I already had, and eventually ended up going through and getting a bunch of stuff off of GoRuck because I'm susceptible to marketing and love that quality of product. The second one is the Steve Jobs book. I remember finishing a road trip and sitting in the car for like an hour after the road trip was over to finish that book. And I can't specifically point to it, but I took several actions based on what I learned from there. And so, gosh, I've never heard of this Rise, Fight, Love book. I think I'd love to get my hands on it. What would I take action on if I read Rise, Fight, Love?
Repeat that. That's giving you the blueprint of how to bookend your days, right?
Yeah.
How to wind down, digital sunset, and then stack all these wins, feel good, have no distractions in the morning. That's the other critical component that I talk about in the book, and I preach with all my clients. Like, when you wake up, you're at your freshest. Do not let negativity, we talked about positivity and negativity before, do not let negativity into your mind. I love to say, hey, have a centurion guard, standing guard of your mind. Do not check your phone. I don't care. I've had mornings where there's 35 text messages when I wake up. I do not check my phone. I stack wins. I feel all this forward momentum, this progress. Then you're so much more equipped to be able to take on what life is going to throw at you. Feel good about yourself before you go down. What so many people do is that negative rabbit hole. They check their phone immediately. They see a text. It's something that ignites their fight or flight system. And then they're screwed for the entire day because their mind's wired to that negativity. Instead, no distractions, stack wins. Yeah, Rise, Fight, Love, Repeat. It's out on Amazon, and it'll give you the blueprint that I operate with.
All right. So I did a little bit of research on you, and we've spoken briefly before this, but you're going to have to forgive me. I don't know. Do you train martial arts at all, or because there is the fight part of it? I'm just curious if you did.
I do not. But I've got a heavy bag and a speed bag downstairs, and my son.
I like my chances then, Jeff.
Yeah, I might be able to outrun you though. We'll see.
Oh, there's no question about that, buddy.
But
I don't know if the camera's adding any weight, but we're not the fastest. We don't practice running. We practice standing and fighting. So, but I admire your effort as well. Cool, man. So listen, as I kind of start to put a bow on this thing, I think you've done such an admirable thing with your life that it appears to be a very attractive way to spend your life these days. I think as technology has arisen, and I think as people see that we can be connected in ways to people that we previously couldn't. It's hard to find, a cycling enthusiast in your neighborhood. It's really easy to find a million of them worldwide, right? And this admirable thing that you've done. Why do you think so many folks are attracted to coaching for themselves and being coaches in the past 5 or 10 years?
I think it's that amped up unhappiness level, right? Of, do I truly want to dedicate my life to what I'm doing? And it's caused a lot of people to say yay or nay, right? A lot of people say, you know what, I don't want to dedicate my life to this. I know I've got a higher calling, or I know my potential inside, and I can feel it. I've got this itch on the back of my neck that I just can't scratch. I've got to lean into it. So, there's, when you find your passion, when you live authentically, when you live that way, that would be my biggest suggestion, is live that way, and then others will follow you. And it is not work to talk and speak about it, because I've done it for so long now. When I first started out, it was a struggle because you're a novice, and let's not beat around the bush. When you start something new, you're going to suck at it when you first do it, right? That's just life lesson right there. But when you lead from the front, when you do it over and over again, when you have it a part of your life, you give that gift to others. It's such a rewarding and fulfilling piece that it lights me up every day. And I still have coaches at this point, right? You've got to be surrounded by positivity, mentors, and other people that can help guide you, even when you're doing it yourself, right? And I think so many times people don't realize that fact.
I agree. So you meet yourself, who's 10 years older. You're 10 years further down the path. What does that guy tell you you're currently getting wrong?
That's a great question. 10 years, I will be 57 years young. What's he going to tell me that I'm getting wrong? Well, I mean, one of the adages that I love to say is, as I learn more, I know nothing, right? Like I am constantly like I am, and I'm sure you encounter people like this. Like I'll encounter people, and maybe they're don't want coaching, but they're like, no, I'm 100%. Don't need to know anything. And I'm like, I'm always going to say I need to know stuff. So that 57-year-old Jeff is probably still saying to me, just be patient and stay the course, right? Be consistent, because that is always a battle of myself internally, as I am dedicated to the cause. I know this is where my purpose and passion lies. But then we've been preconditioned, pre-programmed by society that you got to hit that grand slam home run. You got to get 6-pack abs in 6 minutes. So it's almost unlearning that, and then learning that, hey, it's just consistency. It's putting in the reps every day. It's doing what you need to do, where your heart, soul, and love is centered, and then continue the course.
Beautiful. So there's 2 questions that I ask every single guest that comes on the show, and I'd like to ask them to you now. Jeff, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, brother. Question number 1, if you had access to unlimited financial resources, how would you profitably grow your current business?
How would I profitably grow my career? I'd build a team out, right? That's where I'm at right now, as far as building out a team, biz dev, sales, all those pieces, support. I build out a team to really impact the most people that I could in the world, because I know there's a lot out there that need guidance, want support, and we've got to raise the tides together.
All right. Question number 2. If you had to give up every business you've ever done and try something totally new for a business that you've never done before, what do you think that might be?
A new business that I've never done before. Gym is off the table, right? I always go to physical
Even if
fitness.
you had not owned a gym before, I wouldn't take that as an answer. As a former gym owner, I wouldn't let you go through that.
I mean, I've always been into sports, so I would say something related to broadcasting, or starting a streaming channel related to sports, or something of that nature, because I'll usually recite what the broadcaster says before they say it. My wife's like, why aren't you on TV? So that's probably it.
Well, you're on TV today, so look forward to this is my second time saying it, but look forward to your Spear and Clover bump. You're going to get a huge invoice or influx of new leads from this. Well, Jeff Wickersham, this has been awesome. I think clearly you are exactly who you say you are. You've handled some pretty tricky questions today. I threw a lot at you, more than normal, because I knew you could handle it. And so anybody still listening to this needs to get a hold of more information from Jeff. They want to be in the Jeff business. So how do they get a hold of you, and what do you got for them?
Yep, they can go out to themorningfire.com. That's where I have all my content, podcast, all that good stuff. You can get a link to my book, or if you want to grab 20 minutes on my calendar, let's talk shop. I always love connecting with other people. I feel like that is lost in today's world, is having conversation, Jason, like you and I are having. When you connect with other people, it lights you up. And I will leave your audience with this. You'll never know. One conversation can change your life trajectory forever.
I got nothing to add to that, brother. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.